The Harvest Moon Curse. The town of Hollowfield prepared for its annual Harvest Moon Festival with a mix of excitement and unease, as the ancient traditions were both cherished and feared by the locals. Evelyn, the town's historian, had spent years studying the old rituals, knowing that they were more than just folklore, but a fragile link to a powerful, ancient pact. The townspeople gathered in the town square, where the old stone altar stood, weathered by time and drenched in the legends of the harvest deity they had worshipped for centuries. Jake, a journalist from the city, arrived in Hollowfield with a skeptical attitude, dismissing the festival as nothing more than quaint superstition in a backward town. Nora, the festival's organizer, was eager to bring a modern twist to the old customs, planning to replace the traditional offerings with a more contemporary celebration. Caleb, one of the oldest townsmen, watched Nora's preparations with a grim expression, his mind troubled by memories of past harvests and the price of broken promises. The harvest moon rose that night, casting an eerie orange glow over the town, as the festival began with music, laughter, and the scent of freshly baked pies. Evelyn noticed that something was off. The air felt heavy, charged with an unnatural energy, as if the very earth was protesting the changes to the ancient rites. Nora, oblivious to the warning signs, instructed the townspeople to proceed with the new ceremony, replacing the ancient offerings with store-bought goods. As the first offering was placed on the stone altar, a sudden gust of wind howled through the square, extinguishing the lanterns and plunging the town into darkness. Caleb's voice cut through the silence, his words trembling with fear as he warned that the pact had been broken, and the harvest deity would soon exact its revenge. Jake rolled his eyes at Caleb's ominous proclamation, still convinced that the old man's fears were nothing more than baseless superstition. The ground beneath the altar began to tremble, and the stone cracked open, revealing a dark void that seemed to pulse with a malevolent force. Panic spread through the crowd as shadows began to twist and writhe, forming grotesque shapes that clawed at the edges of the square, trapping everyone inside. Evelyn grabbed Jake by the arm, urging him to follow her to the library, where the town's oldest records might hold the key to stopping the curse. Nora, shaken but determined, stayed behind with Caleb, hoping that together they could find a way to appease the angry deity before it was too late. The shadows grew more menacing, taking the form of twisted, skeletal creatures that began to stalk the townspeople, their hollow eyes glowing with an unholy light. Evelyn and Jake reached the library, where dust-covered tomes and ancient scrolls lay in disarray, containing the forgotten knowledge of Hollowfield's dark history. Jake, now visibly shaken, started to realize that the horrors unfolding in the town were not just products of fear but manifestations of something truly ancient and evil. As Evelyn searched through the records, she found an old parchment detailing the original pact with the harvest deity, bound by blood and sacrifice. The parchment revealed that the deity had demanded a portion of each harvest, along with a sacred offering, to ensure the town's prosperity and protection. Jake, now desperate, asked Evelyn what they could do to restore the pact and save the town from being consumed by the wrathful deity. Evelyn explained that they needed to recreate the original offering, exactly as it had been performed centuries ago, to restore the balance and appease the deity. Meanwhile, in the town square, Nora and Caleb fought to keep the encroaching shadows at bay, using whatever they could find to fend off the skeletal creatures. Caleb, drawing on his knowledge of the old ways, began to chant an ancient incantation, hoping to slow the creatures' advance and buy them more time. Back at the library, Evelyn and Jake finally found the list of items needed for the offering, each symbolizing a different aspect of the harvest and the cycle of life. The two raced through the darkened streets, gathering the sacred items, grains, fruits, and a handmade doll representing the spirit of the harvest. As they returned to the square, the creatures sensed their presence, turning their hollow eyes toward Evelyn and Jake, their skeletal hands reaching out. Caleb's chanting faltered as the creatures grew more aggressive, but Evelyn shouted for him to hold on, urging Nora to help prepare the altar for the offering. With trembling hands, Nora arranged the sacred items on the altar, while Jake helped Evelyn light the ceremonial fire using a bundle of dried sage. The creatures closed in, their bony fingers scraping against the stone, but Evelyn stood firm, reciting the ancient words that would complete the offering. As the final word left her lips, the fire roared to life, engulfing the sacred items in a bright, golden flame that cast the shadows away and restored light to the square. The skeletal creatures let out a ghastly wail, dissolving into wisps of smoke as the altar glowed with an otherworldly light, the void beneath its ceiling shut. The wind died down, and the eerie tension in the air began to lift, replaced by a calm that settled over the town like a blanket of peace. Caleb collapsed to his knees, exhausted but relieved, as the townspeople slowly emerged from hiding, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. Nora, her eyes wide with disbelief, thanked Evelyn and Jake, realizing the gravity of her mistake and the fragile balance she had nearly destroyed. Evelyn, though relieved, knew that the ordeal was far from over. The pact had been restored, but the scars it left on Hollowfield would never fully heal. Jake, now a firm believer in the power of the old ways, decided to stay in Hollowfield, documenting the town's rituals and helping to preserve its ancient traditions. As the first light of dawn broke over the town, the harvest moon faded from the sky, leaving behind an eerie silence that echoed through the streets. The townspeople gathered around the altar, vowing to never again tamper with the old ways, understanding now that their prosperity came at a steep cost. Evelyn, however, could not shake the feeling that something had changed. Though the deity had been appeased, its presence lingered in the shadows. Nora, burdened by guilt, took it upon herself to learn more about the old rituals, determined to protect the town from ever falling into such peril again. Caleb, weary from the night's events, warned that the deity's wrath could never be fully quelled, only appeased, and that the townspeople must remain vigilant. As the sun climbed higher, the town began to return to normal, though a sense of unease lingered in the air, a reminder of the night's horrors. Evelyn and Jake walked to the edge of town, where the dense woods began, knowing that the forest held secrets far older than Hollowfield itself. They stood in silence, watching the leaves rustle in the morning breeze, each wondering what other ancient forces might lie hidden, waiting to be disturbed. Jake, now a changed man, vowed to use his writing to warn others of the dangers of ignoring the past, while Evelyn decided to delve even deeper into the town's history. The two returned to the town square, where the remnants of the festival were being cleaned up, the cheerful decorations now seeming out of place in the daylight. As they walked past the altar, they noticed a single, unburnt stalk of wheat lying at its base, a silent reminder of the power that had been unleashed. Evelyn picked up the stalk, her heart heavy with the knowledge that the town's peace was temporary, and that the cycle would one day begin again. The Harvest Moon Festival, once a time of joy, had become a solemn reminder of the town's dark history and the ancient pact that bound them to the harvest deity. Jake and Evelyn agreed to work together to document the town's rituals and keep its history alive, hoping to prevent future generations from repeating their mistakes. As the last remnants of the festival were cleared away, the town returned to its quiet routine, though the memory of the curse lingered in every shadow. Caleb, before retreating to his cabin, passed on the knowledge of the rituals to Nora, ensuring that she would become the new guardian of the town's traditions. The townspeople, now wary of the modern world, decided to embrace their ancient ways, knowing that their survival depended on respecting the old ways. Evelyn and Jake left the town square, walking down the cobblestone streets as the first signs of autumn began to appear, a chill in the air foretelling the coming winter. The harvest moon, now a distant memory, would rise again next year, and the town would gather once more, wary but wiser, to honor the pact that kept them safe. In the end, the town of Hollowfield learned a harsh lesson: their prosperity was built on ancient rituals, and any deviation could bring devastating consequences. As the two walked away, the shadows of the wood seemed to whisper, a faint echo of the ancient deity that still watched over the town, waiting for the next harvest moon.